Are you currently a biomedical scientist and you've been considering what it means to be a locum? In this video, I'm going to talk about some advantages and disadvantages of locuming. So if you like to know more, if you like to weigh your options and learn more about being a locum, keep watching this video. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily. If this is your first time, you're welcome, and if you've been here before, thank you very much for coming back. So today's video is just to talk about locuming as a biomedical scientist. So I'm going to talk about who a locum is, why a locum is needed, the advantages and disadvantages of locuming. So who is a locum? A locum is a term that is generally used in the medical field, and it usually refers to someone that is employed by an organization to fill in the space of another individual in their absence. This individual is expected to carry out the roles of the person that is absent, maybe a doctor or a nurse, while they are absent. So a locum is just someone that works in an organization temporarily while another personnel is absent, and they are expected to carry out the duties of this personnel in their absence. This leave or the absence of this personnel can be due to holiday, sick leave, study leave, maternity leave, or if the organization is short-staffed, or if there's increased workload in the organization. Locums can be employed directly by the organization, or they can be supplied as agency staff. So the NHS, that generally employs most medical personnel in the United Kingdom, can employ locums as a direct engagement, or they can be supplied to the NHS organization by locum agencies. The duration of locums can range from few weeks to few months, sometimes to few years. So it depends on how long the personnel is absent. If someone is just off for few weeks, the locum will be required for few weeks. If it's someone that is off for like maternity leave, they will be required for an average of 9 months to a year. Or if the medical personnel retires, they are not able to fill that post, a locum can be there for a year, 2 years, even sometimes for a longer period of time, until a suitable candidate is found for that post. So now I'm going to move on to the advantages and disadvantages of locuming. Although I'm going to be talking about the advantages of locuming and disadvantages of locuming from a biomedical scientist perspective, but all these points also would probably be the same for a locum nurse or a locum pharmacist or a locum doctor. The first advantage is the pay. Locums earn more than a permanent staff, and this difference in pay is usually due to the uncertainty that is associated with being a locum, because you can have a job and in few weeks time you might not have a job. So being paid higher covers the uncertainty of the job. Also, because of the flexibility that is associated with locuming, like your employer only needs to give you a week's notice, so the uncertainty of getting another job and the flexibility with which the employer can dismiss you, and also the fact that you do not get any benefits from being a member of the workforce. So a locum gets paid more to reflect all these factors. Another benefit being a locum is you get paid weekly. You get paid weekly, unlike most permanent staff that are paid monthly. So if you have expenditures or things that require you to spend some money at a particular time in the month, you don't need to wait to the end of the month to be able to gather some resources. You get paid weekly, so by the end of a week or 2 weeks, you're able to gather enough funds to be able to see to those needs that you have, rather than waiting the whole month like most permanent staff, because they get paid at the end of every month. The third advantage of being a locum is that you get a good work-life balance. This is because most locum roles are usually 9 to 5. Most biomedical scientists work 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. as a locum. The permanent staff in the lab are the ones that usually pick up the weekends or the late or the out of hours. So as a locum, you start your job at 9 o'clock and by 5 o'clock you're heading home. So you have more time to do other things you love. You are not compelled to work late at night, or you're not compelled to take up night shifts, which is really good. In relation to pay, because you're paid more than permanent staff, being a locum allows you to save up for projects, because if you're earning more, you get to be able to save more. And if you want to say in a year's time, I would like to save enough to buy a house, being a locum allows you to get paid more, which enables you to be able to save more, which enables you to get the funds together that you need to fund this project. Or if you like to fund some investment, having a job as a locum gives you these funds with which you can pump into these investments within a short period of time. The fifth advantage of being a locum is that you get to move about, you get to travel, you get to see other places, you get to explore the cities. Like if you work in the UK and you're flexible, you can get to work in Scotland, Wales, England, every part of the country. You can get to see all the cities also while you're working there. So it's very good because it offers you the opportunity to move about and explore many places rather than being stuck in a place as a permanent staff for a long period of time. The sixth advantage of being a locum is that it gives you freedom and liberty. You have the freedom and the liberty to take your holiday when you want. There won't be any manager that would be telling you, oh, you can have this time off. You can take time off work to do other things. You can take time off work at the weekends to spend time with your family or to do other things that you like, which is good because you are not tied to any rota that makes it compulsory for you to stay back or for you to work weekends or nights. The seventh advantage of being a locum is that you get to choose your hours, you get to choose the time you want to work. So if you want to say for the first half of the year you want to work, and by the second half of the year you want to take time off work to study, or you want to take time off work to do other things, being a locum allows you to do that. There's some people that probably work only during winter, and by the time it's summer, for summer break, they are doing other things that they love to do because they have spent the time in winter to get all their funds that would sustain them for the whole year. So this is an advantage of locoming. You get to choose when you want to work. The eighth advantage, you get to choose where you want to work. Although sometimes you might not have the liberty to choose that, but if you're really flexible, you would get to say, oh, I don't want to work in England, I want to work in Scotland, or I don't want to work in Wales, I want to work in England. And if you're lucky to get jobs there, you can actually choose where you want to work. Or if you want to work in particular hospitals, some people would like to work in big hospitals that are known for research, or they are known for groundbreaking research. So if there are jobs open there, you can say, oh, I would like to work in this hospital. Some people might only want to work in London because they live in London and they won't want to move away from their family. So they would request for jobs that are specific to London. And if you're lucky enough, you can always stay in London. You can always get jobs in London. And that is an advantage because you can choose to work where you want to work. Advantage number 9, being a locum allows you to see other ways of doing things because you are not stuck to this mentality for your whole career. You get to go to other labs that happen to do the same thing but in different ways, and through this you get enlightened and see other ways by which people carry out the same thing, still achieving the same results. You get to see other equipment, you get to see other reagents, you get to see other methods, you get to see other standard operating procedures, you get to see other method of working, like you might work in a lab using the lean method where everything happens at a particular time, and you get to see other labs that don't. So you get to experience all these laboratory settings, which is a wealth of experience to have as a biomedical scientist. The 10th advantage of being a locum biomedical scientist is that it gives you the opportunity to network. You get to meet different people as you move from one place to another, and so you get to know people, you get to share knowledge, you get to make new friends and get to network, and that increases your cycle of like-minded people. 11th advantage of being a locum biomedical scientist is that you get to develop adequate interpersonal skills and communication skills because you would continually meet different people, different temperaments, different ways of working, different ideology, different categories of people, different race, different ethnicity, a wide range of people. So when you get to move about, you get to learn how to relate to different people in different settings, understanding different personalities, and that will help you to develop adequate communication and interpersonal skills. Another advantage of working as a locum BMS is that it comes with a reduce level of stress because you just go into this new place, or you go into this place you're used to going, you do your job, and when the day is over you come out. You're just here for a temporal period. You just know that you go in, do your job to your best of your knowledge, do it to the best of your ability, and you're out. And there's a way it actually reduces your mental stress. Another advantage of working as a locum is that you're not involved in lab politics or bureaucracy. You just go in there, do your work, and you leave. So you are not dragged into forming cliques. You're not dragged into things that you shouldn't be involved in. So it's just a easy method to avoid all this stress relating to lab politics or relating to politics in working in a particular place. The next advantage of working as a locum is that it gives you the opportunity to work temporarily if you're looking for a permanent job. Probably if you moved from one place to the other, or you actually relocate from one part of the country to the other, you can take up locum work while you get permanent jobs. So rather than just sitting and waiting for the permanent jobs to arrive, you can actually get locum work and you do them, so that when the permanent job you desire is available, you can easily slot into that. So it keeps the funds coming and also keep you going. The final advantage of working as a locum, I think this is the 15th advantage of working as a locum, is that you can leave a job within a short period of time. Like if it's not working with your schedule, or if you are not settling well in a job, you only need to give your manager a week's notice, and in a week's time you can choose to leave the job. So this is actually a huge advantage, because most permanent position you are required to give at least a month's notice, or if you are in a managerial position, you'll be required to give at least 2 or 3 months notice in some cases. So if you want to move on from a job, you can easily move on, because all you have to do is just to give your manager a week's notice. And so that concludes the advantages of working as a locum. Now I'm going to move on to the disadvantages of working as a locum. The first disadvantage of locuming is that it's associated with a lot of uncertainties, because it's a temporal work. It doesn't give you that guarantee that you have a job for a long period of time, which might not be suitable for most people. The second disadvantage is because of the uncertainty that is associated with being a locum, you are not guaranteed income all the time. You only get paid for what you work. So if there's a period of time where jobs are lacking, or maybe if you really want to stay in a particular place and there's no job in that particular place, and you don't want to move from that place, maybe for other reasons, family reasons, or just other reasons why you won't want to move in that particular place, you might end up not having an income for that period of time. So that's a huge disadvantage of locuming, because the income is not guaranteed. The third disadvantage is that being a locum is not family friendly. If you are someone that has a family and you would like to work as a locum, being a locum can take you away from your family. This is usually for people that probably don't want to move their family. They would have to stay away from their family and probably come home just for weekends, and that might not give them enough time to spend with their family. So being a locum can take you anywhere, and that doesn't give you the time that you need to spend with your family. Another disadvantage of being a locum is that you are not entitled to sick leave. So if you're sick, you will not get paid. So if you have any sickness, like if you probably are sick for a long period of time, like if you needed to go for like an operation and that takes you off work for like 3 or 6 months, being a locum, that means you would not get paid for that period of time, because as a locum you only get paid for when you work. So if you are off sick for even a day or 2 or even longer, it actually doesn't favor you, because you do not get paid for that time that you're spending off work. This next disadvantage is that you do not get annual leave. There's a way that some agencies pay you your holiday pay on top of your salary. It's usually called accrued holiday pay, and this is basically worked out on the hours you've worked. So if you've worked for few hours, they would calculate that on top and add it to your pay. So that is how some people go about having holiday pay. But in some agency work, you might not get holiday pay. So if you're going away for a long period of time, you would not get paid for that period you were off work, but you probably get an holiday pay on the hours you've worked. So if you've worked for a particular time, a percentage of that hours you've worked will be calculated and paid back to you as holiday pay. But if you take time off work to go away, you will probably not get paid for that period of time. The next disadvantage is that there is no pay for study leave. So if you decided to take time off work to go back to school to do like an MSc, or take time off work to do like a secondment, or do anything that takes you off your work to study or to do research, you do not get paid that. All you get paid is when you work, and if you're off your work, you do not get paid for this time that you're off studying. Another disadvantage is you might not get paid for maternity leave, and this is usually dependent on how long you've been with your agency. So if you've been with your agency, or if you've been with this trust for less time that it's required to get paid for maternity leave, so that means you might not get paid for paternity or maternity leave if you've not been with this employer for a long period of time. The next disadvantage is if for any reason you can't work, like just for any reason you can't work. A good example is during this period of COVID-19, a lot of locums were actually left without jobs because it's either the labs are closed or the children are at home. There's no childcare, they have to stay back and help the kids to study. So in periods like this, there are things that just happen for no reason, or things like maybe if you're snowed in, or if there's a natural disaster, or if there's an epidemic, there's no way you could go to work, or there's no way you could physically be there due to various reasons. You will not get paid for this period of time. The next disadvantage of working as a locum is that there's no pension scheme directly for you. You have to probably have a private pension, or sometimes your agency can have a pension arranged for you. So automatically you don't generally have a pension, and sometimes if you're moving from one agency to the other, it's very difficult, because I think you need to have spent a particular amount of time with an agency before they set you up for their pension scheme. So if you're constantly changing jobs, you probably will not have any pension. The way most people go about this is having a private pension in which they pay in to like every time they are paid. So being a locum doesn't actually guarantee you a pension. You need to look into this yourself. You need to have worked with your agency for a time, or you need to get a private pension for yourself. If you're a locum, you don't get opportunity to do things like training or continual personal development. Like you don't get opportunity to attend trainings like other permanent staff might do. You might be lucky enough to get be in a lab that allows you to attend their lunchtime lectures or their seminars, but you're there to work. So most people might not offer you that time to get trained or to get this knowledge. So being a locum does not give you the opportunity to get some training. So you need to look into continual professional development for yourself, so just to keep your skills and your knowledge in date. Another disadvantage in relation to training is that there's some places that actually sponsor their permanent staff to do stuff like their MSc, or to do diplomas, or to do like certificates in higher specialists or stuff like that. But being a locum, you don't get the opportunity to do that. If you like to study for your MSc, you need to sponsor yourself. If you would like to do progress in your career, like do the certificate of higher specialist or do other diplomas in relation to being a biomedical scientist, you would need to look into that yourself, and you might not even get a lab that will be willing to train you for that. So that is the huge disadvantage, because you just get to do what you know how to do. You don't get to advance in your career in that way. Being a locum can be really stressful for some people, because it's just a constant change. If you have a quick turnover of jobs, there's some people that stay in a particular place for a long period of time, but in some cases you might need to just work in a place for a few weeks, then move on to the next place, and that can be stressful for some people if they like to know what they are doing, if they like to have a system to the way they work. If you go to a place, it might be different from the other, so it can be stressful to get into a place and not know what you're doing, or having to ask questions, or having to learn a way of doing things. So it's just another point to consider if you are looking into becoming a locum. Also, the constant thing associated with locoming, because you have to learn new ways of doing things. You might have different working hours. Some labs can require you to start at 8 o'clock and finish at 4. Some can require you to do half 8 to half 4. Some 9 o'clock to 5. So all this constant change in your schedule, or all this constant change in the way you work or the procedure, you might get to a new place and they have a totally different type of machines. You will need to learn all this again. So this constant change might be a huge disadvantage to some people. Being a locum is very isolating. You're lonely sometimes because you are away from your family, you are away from what you know, you are away from the surroundings you know, you are away from the things you love, you are away from your support system. So being a locum can be very isolating and lonely, but it's advisable to look at the positive side of exploring the city, positive sides of looking at what to do. So it's just to put it out there that sometimes you can be homesick, sometimes you can be lonely because you don't have your people, you don't have your family with you. Also, being a locum, you might get the job that the permanent staff don't want to do. They just assume you're there as a locum, you probably won't mind, but most times you should be fine with that. Some labs are not like that. Being a locum, you probably lack some support, like managerial support, because you are not responsible to a particular manager. You might be responsible to your agent, recruitment consultant, but if you're going through any challenge in your work, you don't have that managerial support that you probably speak to someone, or if there's a clash between you and a staff. As a permanent staff, it's easier for you to just walk up to the manager and them what you want to tell them. But as a locum, you might not have that confidence, or you might not have that avenue to actually go to a manager to explain all this to them. Or if you're experiencing any difficulty, because you're a locum, you might feel that you are not there to disturb them, or you are just there to do your work. So you can get to that state that you don't really have any support in that manner. But it's usually good for you to speak up, because most times people might not know what you're going through. So it's because you're just there, they might assume that you know what you are doing, which you should do, but sometimes getting to a new place can be challenging. So if you have any challenge, it's best to speak up and be confident and let people know how you're feeling in a professional manner, and also in a manner that shows that you're not just there to cause any problem, but you are there to do your work and to do it in the best way possible. Another disadvantage is, as a locum, there's a high expectation of a locum, because they expect you to come and hit the ground running. So you're always probably on your feet, because there's a huge expectation of what you're doing. People expect you to come in and know what you're doing. So there's this constant pressure on you to do your work to the utmost ability. But if you have a wealth of experience, you should be able to cope with this adequately. Another disadvantage of being a locum is sometimes saying goodbye might be difficult, because probably you've been in a place for like few months or a year, and suddenly you have to leave because the person that was on maternity leave, whom you were covering their position, is back, and you have to leave, and you've already probably bonded with this team of people for a period of time. You have to say goodbye. So that's another disadvantage of being a locum. There's a transient moving from one place to the other. So if you don't like say goodbyes, you might find this difficult. And the last disadvantage of being a locum is sometimes you might get resentment from other permanent member of staff. They expect you to do more because they assume you're paid more, even though by the time you calculate all the leaves that you will be getting, all the sick pays and all the benefit that you will not be getting compared to being a permanent staff, is probably almost the same, because you are there to work, and because you're doing the same job as a permanent member of staff, but you're getting paid more. You probably might experience this resentment. It might be subtle in some cases, but you might get to experience this resentment. But at the end of the day, you're there to do your job. You're there to do your job as much as you can. So you should be able to cope with this. With experience, you'll be able to cope with this better. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much for watching this video. It's been a long one, but I hope it's enlightened you into what a locum is and also the advantages and disadvantages of being a locum. So if you like to be a locum, I would like you to sit down, go through all these points so that you know that you're making the right decision. And the good part of being a locum is that if you leave a permanent job and you decide to locum, and in a few years time you do not like the word of locuming, or you think that it's not for you, you can easily go back to being a permanent staff. But it's also good for you to have this experience of actually being free, actually being flexible, actually doing other things that you love to do. So thank you very much once again for watching this video. Please, if you've not subscribed, kindly subscribe to my channel, like and share this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye for now.